Listen guys, if you watch the channel, then you would know we cover Android all day, every day. But lately, there's been one particular issue that's been impossible for me to ignore. Whenever I open Threads or Twitter or Reddit, 100% of the time, I'm seeing a lot of frustration, way more than usual, from the core Nothing Phone community. Take one look at their subreddit and it is just being bombarded with thread after thread, post after post, outraged by a lot of the changes that the company has been making lately. And I feel the pressure is just building up so much that I needed to talk about it as someone that loves Android, because this is a deeply concerning story to me. As of late, there's been three major issues that have Nothing fans so angry. For one, after years of making fun of other Android brands, Nothing is actually putting real advertisements in their software. On top of that, they're adding pre-installed apps, aka bloatware, to their devices, and they've also released a new phone which is effectively serving as a Trojan horse of sorts for these new initiatives. Those three issues are causing a huge knee-jerk reaction within the community that makes people feel like Nothing is abandoning their core principles and a fundamental betrayal of the brand's original promise. And honestly, the longer we look, the worse it gets. Let's take one of their new implementations like Lot Glimpse, for example. One of our senior editors, Ben Schoen, did a fantastic deep dive into the feature. Basically, Lot Glimpse is a new revenue stream that shows ads and promotions on your lock screen. But the worst part is, apparently, clicking on these ads funnels you into a clickbait farm. This means there's no actual product or original content to actually engage with, just a low quality website where someone somewhere gets paid every time a user clicks on one of these ads, which is ultimately just an incredibly poor user experience. I know it's a huge claim, so I do have a link in the description for the full article if you want to read it for yourself, and I highly encourage you do. Or we can talk about the newly added pre-installed apps that will be bundled into every non-flagship Nothing Phone device from here on out. Nothing says these apps are ones that people are already installing, like Facebook or Instagram, TikTok as well in some regions, and thankfully it can be disabled. Initially, it was reported there are some system level services that you could not remove, like Meta App Installer, Meta App Manager, and Meta Services, but about a week after this initial announcement, Nothing has changed their stance on this and made it clear that later in the month, users will be able to uninstall those system level Meta services, which is a big win for the user base, but it took a lot of public backlash to get to that point. And with the most recent Nothing Phone 3A Lite, I mean, hey, I'm always down to welcome a new smartphone to the industry, but it's basically a rehash of the CMF Phone 2 Pro with 99% of the exact same specs, but just with Lot Glimpse and some of these pre-installed apps. In general, I feel the 3A Lite was a device that no one was really asking for and probably shouldn't have even have been made. Not to mention, their phone line in general is getting way too overbloated now. We have, of course, the flagship Nothing Phone 3, but then for the budget line, we have so many other ones like the 3A Pro, the regular 3A, and now the 3A Lite. These three changes were just announced in the past few weeks, and it seems to be making a lot of people upset. But my big question here is, why now? Why today, at this particular time, is Nothing making all these changes, even if it's at the expense of their core user satisfaction? And unfortunately, I think this is a broader discussion of what's going on in the bigger industry as a whole. Open the news for 5 seconds and you're constantly hearing about the economic state of the world. Clearly, it is true that people are struggling, and it isn't too crazy to think that companies are struggling as well, which by proxy is making the smartphone market even more competitive than it already was just a few years ago. Consumers and reviewers, like myself, all demand the best specs, best cameras, unique designs, and amazing AI features, all at the lowest possible price. So as you can imagine, with Nothing trying to compete with that, their profit margins are probably razor thin. And if you look at consumers these days, there is a massive economic squeeze where people are desperate, they want more value for their dollar, which is 100% fair, by the way. And for Nothing, meeting all of these high demands is a risky position for them as a newer company, which is still a startup, by the way, but really it's a risky business for any phone manufacturer right now. Take Pixel, for example. If they experience a downfall in sales because of the Tensor G5, let's say, Google as a company still has YouTube, its ad business, Gemini, and Chrome to keep it afloat in the meantime. Samsung, they're in the same situation. If their chip costs go up because the newest Snapdragon chip costs a bit more money, they still have a massive presence in the market, selling laptops, tablets, home appliances, and more to help them get through that tough time. But Nothing doesn't really have much, if anything, to fall back on. Their budget phones are probably barely making a profit. They have one flagship device that wasn't really too well received and some budget audio accessories. So effectively, they're building their entire empire from scratch with no true safety net. And basically, I say all of this to make a point that these decisions, while hugely impacting their community, I strongly believe that they aren't made out of malice or some big conspiracy corporation trying to extort its users. And to me, this reads as something far, far worse than that. To me, all I can think is that these guys are very desperate right now. This reads that the Nothing Phone 3 didn't perform as well as they would have hoped. Tariffs are looming, creating economic uncertainty, and their investors are probably putting a lot of pressure on them for a return, and adding these additional revenue streams is unfortunately a necessary evil for them to simply exist, in my opinion. And honestly, guys, I think they have to know how much this is affecting their company. Everyone from the designers to the software engineers to the office janitor, all the way up to the CEO has to 100% know that adding bloatware and lock screen ads is tarnishing the brand identity that they have worked so hard to build. So regardless on whether you boycott Nothing because of this or continue buying, either option is perfectly valid, and I'm not really here to convince you to pick a side. To me, this is a long-term commentary at the entire Android smartphone market. If the one brand left that defined itself by clean and ad-free software can't survive without resorting to this, what does this mean for the future of Android? Personally, all this tells me is what a lot of people suspected when it comes to smartphones in 2025. You either sell a big, blockbuster, mainline device with massive profit margins like Apple or Pixel, then you lock them in with your services, or you sell a device with razor-thin margins with the best possible specs you can afford at the lowest possible price you can sell it for, and then you monetize it with software like pre-installed apps or partner deals. Personally, after Nothing's change in philosophy, I don't think we're ever going to see a no bloatware mass market Android smartphone ever again. Sure, we have Pixel, but let's not pretend that it's bloat free. Google is just pre-installing their own services and trying to lock you into their ecosystem. Same with Samsung, same with OnePlus, especially true with Apple, and also the same with Motorola. And on top of that, I think we'll see some of the smaller players already offering a bloat-free experience struggle until they find something sustainable or ultimately exit the market. So keep an eye on Fairphone, Graphene OS's upcoming smartphone, and honestly, I can't think of one other phone manufacturer that doesn't have bloatware. Regardless, I am gutted to say the pure Android experience is starting to become a luxury these days instead of an absolute given. But guys, that is just my long-winded take on what's going on with Nothing, the community, and the Android market as a whole. Clearly, there is a lot of tension here, and all I can really hope for is that everyone finds a positive outcome. That said, let me know your thoughts on this whole situation down in the comments below. If you're a Nothing Phone fan or user, what are your next steps here? What phone are you going to buy if you're done with the brand altogether, and what do you think is going to happen in the future? Please let me know all your thoughts down below in the comments, and I will see you in the next one.